You know, Willie, it's so interesting. Lynn Goldman came on, and of course, the president attacking the study that she led from George Washington University, talking about thousands of people dying as a result of the storm. It is always really important for Republicans to remember, if they want to look at this study and think that it's biased, that two of the president's most ardent supporters and two politicians about as close to the situation in Puerto Rico as anybody, not on the island, Florida Governor Rick Scott, and also Republican Senate candidate Ron DeSantis, both Republicans, both hyper-partisan in their defense of Donald Trump over the past several years, both saying that thousands of people died and that the GW study actually was far closer to what the reality is than Donald Trump suggesting it was a dozen people or so.
Yeah, and Dr. Goldman works in public health. She does statistics. You have to ask the president what interest she would have in inflating those numbers through her scientific methods. Let's go now to the governor of Puerto Rico. Governor Ricardo Rossello joins us now from San Juan. Governor, it's always good to see you. Let me just ask you, we just had Dr. Goldman on from George Washington University a moment ago, walking us through the numbers, how she arrived, she and her team, at those numbers. Do you accept the George Washington number as the number of people who died in Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico?
Well, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. Yes, I accept the whole process as one that is scientifically robust, independent, and accurate. You know, it's important to state that this is an excess death estimate, but the way it was done, you know, the process that it was taken, the information that it gathered, I think it is very well done. And, you know, Willie, I am a scientist. That's my formal training. So when we commissioned this study to be independent, I also wanted to see what the process was. They took us through the process. I think it was very well done. And I'd be willing to go over that scientific process with the president or anybody in his staff so that, you know, we can arrive at the same conclusions.
Governor, as you know all too well, today is the one-year anniversary of Hurricane Maria making landfall in Puerto Rico. A nightmare for that beautiful island, and the year that followed has been very, very difficult. Give us a status report, if you could, 1 year later. How is the island doing? Well,
you know, the recovery has been long. It's been tough, but at the same time, there's opportunity for rebuilding Puerto Rico unlike ever before. We still have some hiccups. I think we have major bureaucratic hurdles, particularly on the FEMA side of things. We've asked for an extension on the emergency work cost sharing. That's on the desk of the president. We are hopeful that will be given to Puerto Rico, as was given to Louisiana in Katrina. So we have made ways, but certainly there are still a lot of work to be done, particularly on housing. We have over 60,000 homes that still don't have roofs, that have blue tarps. Our energy grid is still vulnerable, and we aim to change that into a modern energy grid that has microgrids, that has over 40% renewables. And at the same time, I am hopeful that right now, with our great relationship with HUD at the federal level, we're going to be able to get the resources down here on the ground quickly and start fixing homes for people that had them devastated, allowing people to have their titles, home titles and ownership. Relocating those that are in dangerous places. So that is kind of the status report right now. And of course, today is a day of solace and remembrance of those that we lost.
Yes.
Right. So, Governor Joe Scarborough here. So as you look back over the past year, if you're writing an after-action report a year later, and trying to make sure that the mistakes of the last year are not repeated after the next hurricane that strikes your island or another island or any other American city or territory, what do you see over the past year that federal, state, local relief agencies failed at the most? And what caused the most excess deaths? What was avoidable and must be avoidable next time this happens?
Well, I think there's plenty of responsibility to go around. Obviously, as governor, I take my share of that responsibility, and I take it very seriously. I want to identify what was done wrong and what I did wrong so that we don't repeat it towards the future. There are certain things, I think that the baseline concern here, Joe, is that we never prepared historically, neither in Puerto Rico or in the United States, for an event of this magnitude. So now going forwards, we really have to assume that we're going to be hit with catastrophic events such as this that leave us really with no communications, no energy, little access to roads, and so forth. I think that the public health emergency response needs to be upped significantly, and that's why we commissioned the study with George Washington, and that's why I have a 920 commission to evaluate how we're going to implement changes such as having a census for those patients that are on dialysis so that we can intervene with them prior to the storm, or having a census in the whole island for homes for the elderly, which we did not have prior to the storm. I think we need to have more resources over here on the ground ready to execute. We need to make Puerto Rico a multi-port destination. We have the opportunity to do so that in case an airport or a port falls down, we can continue to receive help and have business continuity. So many things to be done and responsibility to share.
Governor, you're a strong proponent of statehood for Puerto Rico. Make your case, please.
Well, I think the case has been essentially made to the world in the aftermath of Maria. Regardless of your position on the recovery, there have been some good things and some bad. The truth of the matter is that we've been treated as second-class citizens. The only reason why the recovery was different in Texas, Florida, and in Puerto Rico is because Puerto Rico is a colonial territory of the United States. So until if you are one of those people that feels compelled every time you see the images, every time you see something that happens in Puerto Rico, and you ask yourself, why are these U.S. citizens treated differently? We need to attend to the root cause of the problem, and that is colonialism. Now, the people of Puerto Rico have chosen statehood twice in the past 6 years. So it's also a matter of democracy and of human rights and democratic rights that we're asking to move the ball on the federal government. So right now, the showcase is there. Everybody has seen it. And my petition to all decision makers is to establish their position. Do you want the United States to be the standard bearer of democracy while carrying colonial territories in the 21st century? How can you go to Cuba or to Venezuela and preach democracy while you have over 3 million U.S. citizens disenfranchised? Are we going to allow, in this modern age, to have two types of citizenships in the United States? And are we content with giving people different treatment in this moment where there is clearly a sense of change? So it is my view, Joe, that for all stakeholders right at this time, in the 1-year anniversary, it's time for decision makers to put up or shut up and state if they will welcome Puerto Rico as a 51st state, if they will do what's in their power to make it happen, or if they will reject the right side of history.
All right, we'll see if Congress is listening this morning, Governor, in a way it hasn't in years past. Puerto Rico's Governor Ricardo Rossello, thank you so much, and give our best to your beautiful island. Thank you.
Please do. Thank you.
Thank you so. Thank you.
Still ahead this morning, the Senate Judiciary Committee wants to know by tomorrow morning if Brett Kavanaugh's accuser, Dr. Ford, will testify Monday. But her lawyer says there's no need to rush. We'll get a live report from the White House. Also ahead, is Texas Senator Ted Cruz up or down in his battle with Democrat Beto O'Rourke? 2 polls, 2 days, 2 completely different pictures of the state of that race. We'll have some new numbers when Morning Joe comes right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.